With 246 in the affirmative, 46 voted against. Motion carries. Thank you. Article 5, Fire Department Substation. And I do know you're all here for the gift at the end, so. See if the town will appropriate $18.5 million or any other amount to pay costs of designing, constructing, equipping, and furnishing a new fire department substation, the acquisition of any land or interest in land necessary in connection therewith, and for the payment of any other costs incidental and related thereto, to determine whether this amount shall be raised by borrowing or otherwise, or take any action relative thereto or thereon. This article is sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. Do I have a motion?
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Brasko.
I move that the town appropriates a sum of $18,500,000 to pay costs of designing, constructing, equipping, and furnishing a new fire department substation, the acquisition of any land or interest in land necessary in connection therewith, and for the payment of all other costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, $1,500,835 shall be transferred from the general stabilization fund, $98,165.40 shall be transferred from unexpected bond proceeds that are no longer needed to complete the project for which they were originally borrowed, and the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow $16,901,000 under and pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7(1), or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. No amount shall be borrowed or expended pursuant to this vote until the town has voted to exclude $13,100,000 of the $16,901,000 principal amount of bonds authorized by this vote, and the interest associated therewith, maturing in each year on any bonds or notes issued pursuant to the vote from the property tax levy limits contained in General Law 5921C, also known as Proposition 2.5.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. And I have the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
I would ask, we set the general stabilization fund, and I asked that the motion be.
Oh, I said general, so I'm sorry, I'm amended to capital stabilization fund.
Okay, just to clarify, so on the page that has Article 5 listed, where it refers to the fund from which $1,500,835 shall be transferred from the capital stabilization fund. So I thought I heard capital, so thank you. Thank you for the catch. You had said general, and that is not the same, so capital stabilization
Yeah,
fund.
it should be capital. Yes.
Thank you. So just a correction of the other. Thank you. So we have that motion with capital. Do we have a second for that? Thank you. All right, now the recommendation of the Finance Committee. Thank you.
The Finance Committee strongly supports this motion.
Thank you. May I have a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen supports this motion.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second before us. Is there anything to be said on this matter? If anyone wishes to speak, you may rise to the microphone, and then I will call on you and ask you to state your name and your residential address here in Charlton.
My name is Peter Howard. I live at 67 South Charlotte Shore Road. My only question concerning this matter is, I understand the, million something and so on, but my other question is, the balance of this money, we're gonna take a bond out, and where is the interest for this coming from? The taxpayers are gonna pay this? I just need a clarification on that.
Thank you. So I will ask the chairman of the Finance Committee to discuss the financing of this loan.
So, yes, it is a bond, and we borrow the money. The bond starts in 2027, would hit our tax rate, okay? And, yeah, when you pay a bond, you pay both principal and interest. So yes, it would be part of your tax increase, which I think was calculated at $1.48 per thousand. $148 per average house in Charlton, which reached $250,000. So If you've got a $250,000 home in Charlton, you're gonna see your tax rate go up by $148 per year. But I will say, okay, that's in 2027, right? Before that, we will be dropping the debt on the highway bill that we've been paying for the last 10 years, 15 years. So our tax rate will go down a couple of pennies, right? And then go back up when this building starts to be constructed. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Just a real quick follow-up on that.
Yes.
How long does this payment go? How long are we paying for this?
So,
What were we gonna take, a 30? Was it 30-year bond? Yeah, a 30-year bond.
30 years.
30 years.
And my final question on it
yes,
is,
sir.
so this is considered an override of Prop 2.5, is that correct?
No.
It is not.
No, it is,
It's separate.
right, it's right. A Prop 2.5 override means that you pay that increase from now until the end
Right.
of time. This is just for the length of this bond, till we pay off this bill.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. Yes, sir, would you please state your full name and your residential address?
Absolutely. James Mean, 34 Center Depot Road. Moderator, thank you for letting me speak here. When the motion started being read, and right around the time that the clarification was made on capital versus general, that was right around the time that if the response time had been that long for a fire or for an EMS call, that's right around the portion where a person is permanently brain dead. In the moment this was begun being read until that moment, that's when someone was probably in a coma or non-responsive for the rest of their life. Before the first person asked the first question, the person is certainly passed away by that point. From the moment of a stroke, a heart attack, when oxygen stops going to the brain. This entire thing is about two things. It's about money, but it's also about response time. And that's what response time is. That was no time between when they began reading this motion, when the correction happened. The response time matters. This new substation matters. That's the difference. We all know someone who's had a stroke. We all know someone whose house has caught on fire, someone who's had a heart attack. Our fire department needs this facility, not because they just want a random facility, but because it's important. So I rise to strongly support this and to thank the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen for recommending this.
Thank you, Mr. Mead. Yes, would you please approach the microphone and give your full name and residential address?
Sure. My name is David Vitello. I live at 11 Lambs Pond Circle in Charlton, Massachusetts. On June 4th, 2023, I had a brain aneurysm, and I was hours away from dying. No family history. 2 weeks before, the doctors told me I was healthy. And thanks to the Charlton Fire Department for saving my life, bringing me to UMass. I still had 28 days in the ICU. But I'm a stroke victim, and when I saw my doctor 2 weeks ago, he told me you should be in a wheelchair or you shouldn't have left the hospital. So I just want to publicly support this motion to say that it's worth it. I'm 46, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm still alive. And whatever the amount that they need, I would fully back it because they saved my life and they've saved many other lives. So I just want to thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing nothing. A 2/3 vote is needed. We're going to begin voting now. Green for yes, red for no. Please vote. Three seconds remaining. Can you stop the voting, please? against, out of a total of 313 voters, that meets the 2/3 votes needed, and the motion carries. If you could please remain seated for a moment, is there a Mr. Perkins in the house? You left your license at check-in, so. Thank you.
Been there, done that.
All right. I do hope you'll stay for the meeting. Again, Brian's drawing. See how quickly this goes? Article 6, intra-departmental transfers for FY '24. To see if the town will vote to transfer and appropriate. Please be quiet. Sums to be specified at the annual town meeting within departmental accounts for one line item for such accounts and another line item for line items of such accounts for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024, or take any action relative thereto or thereon. This article is sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. Do you have a motion?
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Singer.
I move the following sums be raised by taxation or transfer, whichever is indicated below, and appropriated to the following accounts for any purpose for which funds may be expended from the latter account, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen and administrator for his or her designation or other appropriate beneficial board commissioners or committees to enter into such contracts and to release it, and to take such other actions as may be necessary or advisable to effectuate the purposes of the foregoing vote. Each item being considered a separate appropriation. 50,000 from free cash to FY '24 municipal energy. 55,000 from free cash to FY '24 municipal gas and diesel. 120,000 from free cash to FY '24 snow and ice expenses. 13,504 from free cash to opioid settlement funds special revenue account. 200,000 from free cash to the peer review account for third-party inspections.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. May I please have the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee supports this.
Thank you. May I please have the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen supports this motion.
Thank you. We have a majority vote needed. Is there anything to be said on this matter? Hearing none. All in favor, vote yes with the green. Those opposed, vote red. Please vote now. Remaining. Please stop voting. We have 218 in the affirmative, 24 opposed, the motion carries. Okay, capital items, Article 7, capital items and related contracts. To see if the town will vote to raise by taxation, borrow or transfer from available funds, including so-called free cash, and funds previously appropriated to other uses, and appropriate a sum of sums to purchase capital items and for service repair, improvement, architectural, construction, innovation, improvement, and/or other contracts related to town buildings, facilities, and other property, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen, Chief Procurement Officer, or other appropriate town official, board, commission, or committee to enter into such contracts or leases, and to take other such action as may be necessary to effectuate the purposes of such votes, or take any action relative thereto or thereon. This is sponsored by Board of Selectmen and various departments. Do we have a motion?
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Lonsette.
I move that the town will transfer and appropriate the following amounts to the following departments' respective accounts for fiscal year 2024 capital budgets to be expended for the following purposes. Each item being considered a separate appropriation, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen or the Chief Procurement Officer to enter in such contracts, including leases, and to take such other action as be necessary or advisable to effectuate the purposes of foregoing vote. $425,000 from the ambulance receipts reserve for the appropriation account of the ambulance replacement. $10,000 from the municipal waterways receipt reserve for appropriation account of the waterways improvement. $16,000 from free cash for railroad pond repairs. $50,000 from the sewer retained earnings for the sludge design build-out project. $60,000 from the water retained earnings for the Main Street water interconnection project.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. May I have a recommendation of the Finance Committee, please?
Finance Committee supports this motion.
May I have a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
Board of Selectmen support this motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion to be had? The majority vote is needed. Hearing none, please take out your voting devices. All those in favor, vote green. Those opposed, vote red. If you're colorblind, green is 1, red is 2. Please vote now. Seconds. Please stop voting. There's 209 in the affirmative, 24 voted no, and the motion carries. Article 8, Town Budget. To see if the town will vote to raise, borrow, or transfer and appropriate such sum of money as may be necessary to defray expenses of the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024, and as provided by General Law, Chapter 41, Section 108, to fix the salaries and compensation of all elected officers of the town as set forth in the budget voted under this article, or as separately voted by the town under other articles of the warrant for this meeting, or take any action relative thereto or thereon. This article is sponsored by the Finance Committee. Do you have a motion?
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Coronis.
I move that the amount of money set forth in the following headed FY 2025 FinCom recommendation and those headed for departmental totals for personnel and expenses in a report prepared and voted on by the Finance Committee's recommendation at the annual town meeting on May 2024, entitled Town of Charlton 2025 Town Meeting. Warrant FY 2025 budget recommendation of the Finance Committee, May 20th, 2024, Article 8 is the most recently revised, except for those items which are covered in these articles. The appropriated purposes thereof itemized $1,190,000 to be transferred from the ambulance receipts reserve for appropriation RRFA, $5,000 transferred from the sale of the cemetery lots RRFA, $43,175 to be transferred from the dam RRFA, $15,000 to be transferred from the wetlands protection RFA, $93,000 to be transferred from cable RFA.
93,100.
Yes. You transfer from the cable RFA, $5,000 to be transferred from the building fines enforcement RRFA, $3,156 from fund balance reserve for bond premiums, and $38,979,931 to be raised by taxation. Each item marked with an asterisk being considered as a separate appropriation. B, to fix the salaries and compensation of all elected officers of the town as set forth in the budget voted under this article, or as voted separately by the town. Under other articles,
have a motion, do we have a second? Thank you. We have a motion and a second. May I have the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee supports this motion.
Thank you. May I have a recommendation of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen supports.
Thank you. Majority vote is needed. Is there anything to be said on this matter? Hearing none, please take out your voting devices. All those in favor, vote one. Those opposed, vote two. Please vote now. Seconds. Please stop voting. We have 184 in the affirmative, 36 voted no. Majority is needed, the motion carries. Article 9, Water Department Budget Enterprise Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise by taxation, borrow, or transfer from available funds and appropriate to the Water Enterprise Fund such sums of money as may be necessary, together with revenue from the Water Department operations, to defray the expenses of the Water Department for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024, or take any action relative thereto or thereon. This is sponsored by the Water and Sewer Commission. Do we have a motion?
Madam Moderator,
Ms. Zarowski.
I move that $97,700 be appropriated to the Water Enterprise Funds. $3,800 is for personal services and $93,900 is for water-related expenses. The $3,687 be included in appropriations from the general fund for indirect costs and be allocated to the Water Enterprise Fund. The $14,400 be raised from Water Enterprise fees. $33,300 be raised from Water Enterprise retained earnings, and $50,000 be transferred from the Water Stabilization Fund to the fiscal year 2025 Water Department Enterprise Fund account, to be expended under the direction of the Water and Sewer Commissioners for the respective expense purposes set forth in the last column below under the heading Water Enterprise Expenses. Each item being marked with an asterisk, being considered a separate appropriation as outlined in your booklets.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
With a motion and a second, may I have the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee supports this motion.
Thank you. May I have the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen supports this motion.
Thank you. Majority vote is needed. Is there anything to be said on this matter? Okay. Hearing none, please take out your voting devices to vote in favor. Please press 1. If you're opposed, press 2. Please vote now. Seconds remaining. Please stop voting. We have 192 in the affirmative, 22 opposed. Motion carries. Article 10. The Sewer Department Budget Enterprise Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise by taxation, borrow or transfer from available funds and appropriate to the Sewer Enterprise Fund such sums of money as may be necessary, together with revenue from Sewer Department operations, to defray the expenses of the Sewer Department for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024, or take any action relative thereto or thereon. This is sponsored by the Water and Sewer Commission. Do we have a motion?
Madam Moderator,
Yes, Mr. President.
I move that $1,597,380 be appropriated to the Sewer Enterprise Fund, of which $76,400 is for personnel services and $1,520,980 for sewer-related expenses. That $64,531 be included in appropriations from the general fund for indirect costs to be allocated to the sewer enterprise fund, and that $1,397,380 be raised from sewer enterprise fees, $50,000 be raised from sewer enterprise privilege fees, and $150,000 be raised from sewer enterprise betterment fees to the fiscal year 2025 sewer department enterprise fund account to be expended under the direction of the Water and Sewer Commissioners for the respective expense purposes set forth in the last column below under the heading Sewer Enterprise Expenses. Each item being marked with an asterisk, each being considered a separate appropriation as outlined in your book.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We have a recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee supports this motion.
Thank you. Do we have a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen supports this motion.
Thank you. A majority vote is needed. Is there anything to be said on this matter? Yes, sir. Please rise and state your full name and residence in Charlton.
Kevin Hunt, 27 Sturbridge Road. I was just looking to have an explanation of how we went from 154,600 for personnel to 76,400 personnel.
Thank you. We don't often see a decrease in personnel expenses, so I'm going to ask Andrew to respond to that question. Mr. Gold?
Yes, the Water and Sewer Commission reduced their personnel staffing from 2 people down to 1 person over the last fiscal year. There's a single operations director rather than a superintendent and administrative assistant.
Thank you. Is there anything else to be said? Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor, please vote with the green button. All those opposed, vote with the red or number 2. Please vote now. Seconds remaining. Please stop voting. With 185 in the affirmative, 18 voted no, the motion carries. Article 11, transfer of funds to and from stabilization fund account. To see if the town will vote to add funds to and/or transfer and appropriate sums from the stabilization fund account to an account or accounts to be determined at the town meeting, including but not limited to, for purposes of acquiring land in the town or take any action relative thereto or thereof. This article is sponsored by the Board of Selectmen. Yes, Mr. Senator.
I move that the consideration of this article be postponed indefinitely.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. May I have the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee supports this motion.
Thank you. May I have a recommendation of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen supports this motion.
Thank you. Majority vote is needed. If there is no discussion, we will vote on the proposal to postpone indefinitely, which essentially means we move on. So all those in favor, vote with the green button. Those opposed, vote red. Please vote now. Seconds remaining. Please stop voting. 170 in the affirmative, 53 voted no, the motion carries. Article 12, Cemetery Perpetual Care. To see if the town will vote to accept the sum of $22,300 as trust funds from individual persons, the income from each such sum to be used for the perpetual care of the Charlton cemeteries, or take any action relative thereto or thereon. This is sponsored by the Cemetery Commission. Do we have a motion?
Madam Moderator,
Yes, Mr. Lanzetta.
I move that Article 12 be accepted as printed.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. May I have the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee supports this motion.
Thank you. And the recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen support this motion.
Thank you. A majority vote is needed. Is there any discussion to be had on this? All right, hearing none, please take out your voting devices. 1 for yes, 2 for no. Please vote on the motion. Seconds remaining. Please stop voting. 196 in the affirmative. 7 voting no's. And the motion carries. Article 13, revolving funds. To see if the town, upon recommendation of the Board of Selectmen, will vote as authorized by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, to reestablish and or establish the following revolving funds, and to authorize the official commission, board, or committee specified in the second column below to expend funds from the specified account without further appropriation, provided that the amount to be expended from such account in the fiscal year commencing this coming July 1st, shall not exceed the amount set forth in the 5th column, unless an additional amount or amounts are recommended by both the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. This includes, this article, funds from the revolving fund. I'm not going to read this entire chart, but as presented in Article 13. Please take a moment to look it over carefully. Make sure you turn the page and note that the table continues on the back side. The article is or it continues or take any action relative to or thereon. And this is sponsored by the Board of Selectmen and various departments. Do you have a motion?
Madam Moderator,
Yes, Mr. Crumbs.
I move that Article 13 be accepted as printed.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and have the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee supports this motion.
Thank you. We have the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen.
The Board of Selectmen supports this motion.
Thank you. No vote is needed, but before we vote, is there anything to be said on this matter? Hearing none. Please take out your voting devices. All those in favor, vote 1. Those opposed, vote 2. Please vote now. Three seconds remaining. Please stop voting. 192 in the affirmative, 11 voted no, the motion carries. Article 14. To accept Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5C and a half. To see if the town will vote to accept Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5C and a half, which provides for an additional real estate exemption for taxpayers who are granted personal exemptions on their domiciles under Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, including certain blind persons, veterans, surviving spouses, and seniors, and to provide that the additional exemption shall not exceed 100% of the personal exemption to be effective for exemptions granted for any fiscal year beginning on or after July 1st, 2024, or take any action relative thereto or thereon. This is sponsored by the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Assessors. Do I have a motion?
Madam Moderator,
Ms. Zarowski.
I move that Article 14 be accepted as printed.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
May I have the recommendation of the Finance Committee, please?
Finance Committee supports this motion.
Thank you. May I have the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen?
The Board of Selectmen strongly supports this motion.
Thank you. A majority vote is needed. Is there anything to be said on this matter? Please state your name and residence.
Stephen Sage, 41 Lincoln Point Road.
Mr. Sage.
There seems to be kind of a clarification in the next article that it doesn't necessarily pertain to everybody. You have certain standards that you have to fall under. The first one we have to do because it's the law to get it passed, and then we will deal with the second one afterwards. So those two go together in your mind if you're not clear on it. But it's to help individuals who have a financial need for some help in their real estate taxes. I'm not correct, please correct.
Correct, and this is the adoption, so we're only dealing with Article 14 right now. This is adopting a new Massachusetts general law, and essentially the town taking that on. Henry, do you want to say anything further on that?
That is correct. The state does reimburse up to the current statutory amount, or the town takes on the financial burden of renting an additional amount of the lot, which this article allows us to do.
Is there anything further to be said? Hearing none, please take out your voting devices. All those in favor, vote 1 for yes, 2 for no. Please vote now. Three seconds remaining. Please stop voting. 192 in the affirmative, 9 voted no. The motion carries. Article 15, to amend Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, 41C, to see if the town will vote to accept Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, and Chapter 184 and 51 of the Acts of 2002, amending Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 541C, which increases the gross receipts to $20,000 if single, and $30,000 if married, and the whole estate limit to $40,000 if single, and $55,000 if married, to be effective for exemptions granted for any fiscal year beginning on or after July 1st, 2024, or take any action relative thereto or thereon. This is sponsored by the Board of Selectmen and Board of Assessors. Do we have a motion?
Madam Moderator,
Yes, Mr. Borowski.
I move that Article 15 be accepted as printed.
Thank you. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. We have a recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee supports this motion.
Thank you. We have a recommendation of the Board of Selectmen.
The Board of Selectmen supports this motion.
Thank you. Majority vote is needed. Is there anything to be said on this matter before we vote? Hearing none, please take out your voting devices. 1 for yes, 2 for no. Please vote now. Three seconds remaining. Please stop voting. 192 86 in the affirmative, 12 voted no, motion carries. Article 16, transfer of funds and authorization for purchase of 2 parcels of undeveloped land off Bay Path Road in Charlton as a source of potable water for the Charlton Public Water Supply System and other public purposes. To see if the town will vote to A, transfer and appropriate the sum of $835,000 from the Water Stabilization Fund to the Water Enterprise Public Water Supply Acquisition Account for the acquisition by purchase, eminent domain taken or otherwise, 2 undeveloped parcels of land off Bay Path Road, shown on Charlton's Assessor Map 39 as parcel 39-A-17 and parcel 39-A-18 as a source of potable water for the Charlton Public Water Supply System and for other public benefit uses in consultation with and where legally required, subject to approval of other town boards, committees, commissions, and officials having jurisdiction over such other uses. To the extent that in the Charlton Water and Sewer Commission's judgment, such other uses are not inconsistent with the public water supply system, and B, authorize said commission having care, custody, and control of said parcels to take such other action as it deems necessary or advisable to effectuate the purposes of the foregoing right, or take any action relative thereto or thereon. This is sponsored by the Water and Sewer Commission. Do we have a motion?
Madam Moderator,
Mr. Singer.
I move that the sum of $835,000 be transferred and appropriated from and to the accounts listed in the article as printed, and that in all other respects, the article be accepted as printed.
$835,000. Yes, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. May I have the recommendation of the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee supports this motion.
And we have a recommendation of the Board of Selectmen.
The board shall recommend that.
Thank you. Majority vote is needed. Is there anything to be said on this matter? You approach the microphone and state your full name and your address.
7 41 Red Road. I'm assuming that these 2 parcels of land have shown that they can provide the amount of water that is needed for the public water supply. The tests have been all done. And I know there were other tests in other parts of our community to enforce this kind of service. These 2 parcels were successful in providing that water source.
So I will ask for the Water and Sewer Commissioners to address that question. Do we have a representative? Thank you. Please state your name and address.
Good evening, Russ Jennings, 53 Jennings Road, Water and Sewer Commissioner. You are correct in assuming that studies have been done. Large amounts of water exist under this property that have been deemed usable for public water supply. If you don't mind, I'll give you a quick little rundown as to why the commission is thinking about this property and why we brought it before you this evening.
If you do that briefly, that would be fine. Thank you.
May answer a lot of questions. Speed this along. So, as you know, not making any more land out there. As you also know, a lot of pollution in Charlton. When we find a source that's viable, do our research, much of which through grant money over the years, invest in pieces of property that are potentially going to be useful to the town. When we find one and secure the deal and bring it before you, we think it's very valuable to obtain this piece of property today, put it in the bank for later use, and maybe never ever use it. Because at this point in time, developing out a public water supply for ourselves within our town would be very, very expensive, as opposed to our current deal of purchasing water directly from Southbridge.
Mr. Jennings, could I interrupt just for a moment?
Sure.
In the interest of time, to respond to the original question. So are these properties more advantageous than other properties that were tested in town?
Well, I'll challenge you to find additional properties in Charlton that would be deemed viable. They're like hen's teeth. So when we find one, we want to make sure that we lock it down and hopefully we can purchase that property.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Joe Spiewak, 187 Sunset Drive.
Spiewak.
Through you, Madam Moderator, thank you, Mr. Jennings, for your information. I did rise to ask the question that you, a question that you've already answered. But a second question on that would be, so the intent of this purchase is then to sit on this property for some indeterminate amount of time to, at some point, decide if we're gonna wanna use the water that sits underneath it? And the question really comes down to, so if we decide that we don't want to use the water that's underneath it, what do we do with the property?
Well,
Mr. Jennings.
Sure, so you are correct in your first assumption. The current commission has no direction in pursuing their own water supply in town and building out that infrastructure. And that's why you saw a decrease in personnel this year to the tune of the $76,000 that was taken off of the budget, okay? Which exponentially over the next 10 years is $750,000, which just about pays for this piece of property. So in saving one direction, we've invested in another in our estimation. We may never get to use that property, and if we don't, it's not our property, it's the town's property. And they would get to choose what they would do with it, whether it's recreational fields or just turn around and sell the property. It's not like it's not gonna be devalued because we buy it, it's now a town asset.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. So I believe that responds to the question that there is no immediate plan.
So Madam Moderator, one further question then. Since this money is coming from water retained earnings, or stabilization, I don't remember which, I think it's stabilization actually. Is that a legal intent? I guess that's a question for town council. If we never intend to use this for water purposes, or we're not sure, I understand that it's a town of Charlton board that's purchasing the properties. I'm not sure that we can purchase the properties and then have it used for soccer fields until we determine what we're gonna do with it.
Thank you. So the question is, can we use $835,000 from the water stabilization fund if in fact this is not going to be put to immediate use for water? Is there any legal restriction on the use of water stabilization fund? And I'll pose that to our town council.
I can't see the speaker. My understanding is it legal? Yes. It's not guaranteed. This property has been tested, what I know, has been tested for a year. There's a right of access and entry. They've been tested for a year. I was told by the former superintendent, Peter Boring, that they were satisfied that there was more likely a chance to use it for that. You can purchase it for that purpose. When you use it for something else, then you have to come back to town meeting to determine what will be done.
Thank you. So if in fact the water stabilization fund is used for the purchase and we don't use it for water, we would have to return to town meeting for another vote.
Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you, sir.
Ed Ramsey, 144 Hingham Mill Road, Charlton. Just a
Ramsey.
quick question. I don't have the map. How many acres are we looking to purchase for just under 900,000? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jennings, would you respond to that?
Sure, I don't have the acreage here. I believe Dan is here this evening, and he has the exact acreage. Yell that out to me, Dan.
So if we refer to, our packets here, that's a different article, never mind, we don't have a map in the packet. Approximately 86 acres. May have been 86.9, but somewhere between 85 and 86 acres. Thank you. Thank you very much. Would you please share your name and residence?
Dan Crowley, I live at 134 Latch.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Is there anything further to be said on this matter? Thank you all for your assistance in responding to those questions. I see someone rising for another question, so I will wait for that. Please state your name and address.
Janet Iglesias, Davidson Road.
Ms. Iglesias.
I'm on 50 Davidson Road, there's Route 20, and then there's Big Path. There's a lot of problems with, radon and, where's the arsenic, thank you. Arsenic in that area. And so is this really been tested enough to make sure that there isn't arsenic on something that we might want to have town wells down the road? Because the arsenic is show up because it's on Davidson Road, George.
You can continue, you can finish your question.
Yeah, that's my question.
Thank you. So the presence of,
tested.
thank you. So the presence of arsenic in particular as a concern and radon has the water been tested for those?
Yeah, because Davidson Road has it, and Davidson Road, and across 20 is Big Path.
Thank you. Very reasonable question. Mr. Jennings, do you have a response to that regarding testing?
Yes, we have tested it, and it has been deemed that we would be able to filter out any naturally occurring elements so that it would be a positive well for the town.
So it would be potable water?
Correct.
But it has to filter out.
Well, pretty much any water today is probably going to have to be for a public water supply.
Can I ask specifically to the question that was posed, did you test for arsenic and radon?
Everything was tested.
Okay, thank you. And was arsenic or radon present?
I really honestly cannot remember what the levels were. You know, there is naturally occurring elements such as arsenic and radon in pretty much any water sample. It's just a question of what level it's going to be at.
Okay, thank you.
Jessica Pumphrey on 67 Osgood Road. I was a former resident of Big Path Road. I know we were talking about testing, but sodium levels are extremely high on that road, especially because of Route 20. So I know that you said the current testing, but was sodium tested? Also, my other question is, if we're going to purchase this land, there are residents on that road that have polluted wells due to sodium levels of runoff from Route 20. So why would we sit on the property and maybe not access water for residents in that area or on that road?
Thank you. So the article tonight is dealing with the purchase of the property, but I believe the question is relative to sodium, the presence of sodium in the water, and any future plans for using that water.
Simply put, again, everything was tested by the engineering firm that we hired to do due diligence on the property before we tested it. All the samples from the wells that were drilled. And it was deemed that it would be able to be filtered or used as a public water supply.
Thank you. And in terms of, I think you made it clear there are no immediate plans for using that land for water.
That's correct.
Thank you. So this article only speaks to the purchase and set aside of those properties for future use. Yes, sir, please approach.
You stated that the,
Excuse me, I'm sorry, your name and
I'm
address.
sorry,
One more
Peter
time.
Halber, 67 South Charlton Shore Road.
Thank you.
You stated that the water was tested for, all of the elements that we need tested with for personal wells, correct? Was that submitted to the Board of Health? Did the Board of Health need to approve that?
So at this time, it would not be submitted to the Board of Health. It would not be needed to be approved by anything because there's not physically anything going there. It's part of our due diligence as your board to make sure that one of the fundamental questions we asked was, is this water suitable for a public water supply? And the answer is yes from the engineering company. That's first and foremost. I mean, if it can't be filtered out and it's not good water, we're definitely not going to consider it for the water and sewer department. That's
Okay, that would be the concern, because everything, has to be tested, but also submitted. The results have to be submitted, so that's what would be my question.
Correct, so at a future date, if the water is to be used for drinking water, there would no doubt be additional tests required and additional expense to the town of setting that up. Yeah.
And just one thing, if I could add, on, from a personal level, this is not going to increase your taxes. The money is in the fund already for this. And a deal like this is probably never coming around again. It's $10,000 an acre. There's plenty of people who, I'm sure, once they realize this property is for sale, will actually buy it for themselves if the town doesn't exercise the right to purchase it.
Thank you very much.
Madam Moderator.
Peter Lancet, 49 David Pond Road, Charlton, Mass.
Thank you.
I just want to give a little perspective from my time on the Board of Health. The water testing that was done is only a sample at that moment in time. Levels are constantly changing, and things like PFAS are emerging, and national and state levels are being established. So I don't think it's fair, to ask the Water Commission if we have appropriate water. The time of the testing, the firm that they engaged, said that was potable water. So I do make a motion to move.
Thank you. So we have a motion to move the question. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor of moving the question by verbal vote, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Those opposed, say no. Thank you. That motion carries, so let's now move the question. Article 16, for the purchase of 2 parcels. Those in favor, press 1. Those opposed, press 2. Please vote now. Seconds remaining. Please stop the voting. 133 in favor, 64 are opposed. The motion carries. Article 17, zoning bylaw revision at 18 Oxbow Road, map 38-A-3, and 399 Worcester Road, map 38-A-3.1. Zoning map change from agricultural rural residential, AR-16, to community business, CB. To see if the town will vote to amend the zoning map, section 223.1B, by making the following changes. Amend assessor's parcel map 38-A-3 consisting of 2.567 plus or minus acres, and assessor's parcel map 38-A-3.1 consisting of 1.869 plus or minus acres, currently zoned agricultural, rural, residential, to commercial business district. The proposed zoning map change is shown on the attached map, or take any other action relative thereto or thereon. This is sponsored by the planning board. Do we have a motion?
Moderator?
Are you making a motion?
I move that the town vote to approve the Article 17 as written.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve Article 17 as written. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. May I please have the recommendation of the planning board?
Planning board supports this motion.
Thank you. And your name and address, please?
John Smith, 136 Crescent Hill Road.
Thank you.
Planning board.
Thank you very much. A 2/3 vote is needed. Is there anything to be said on this matter? Mr. Nee.
James Nee, 3470 Depot Road. As a quick point of clarification, not really for or against this motion, but in the original article, it refers to community business. The map refers to community business, but then in the detailed section here, it refers to commercial business. Same acronym, CB. I just want to make sure that commercial and community business are synonyms, or is there a typo there? Because one says one thing and the
keeping this legal, we have a motion. We have a motion to amend the original motion to read community business. Mr. Sage made a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you. We have a motion and a second to amend Article 17 to read community business district, not commercial business district. All those in favor, please vote aye verbally. Aye. Anyone opposed, please vote no. Motion carries. The article has been amended. And do we have a motion to approve Article 17 as amended? Thank you. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. And the planning board, we've already heard from, supports the motion as amended. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Carol Holland, 18 Pheasant Lane. I just have a question about the map. Where would the access be? Would the access be on Oxbow Road? If this becomes business zoning? Or would the access be from the county?
Okay, I'm going to ask for the planning board representative to please come back and respond to the question regarding accessing the community business zone. Would the access be from Oxford Road or Route 20?
On that non-regular, they could have actually, if there's a curb cut on Route 20 as it stands now, they'd be able to access it off of Route 20. And if there's a, if we make a petition to make the curb cut to Oxbow Road, we'd be able to do the same.
So it could be either.
Could be either, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anything else to be said? Yes, sir. Mr.
You
Howard.
have South Challenge Road. Just a question to the planning board. What is the reason that it's being changed, the zone is being changed on this piece of property?
So I ask for the planning board to please comment on the rationale for why this change is being made for the zone development.
Well, originally these lines have been drawn arbitrarily along Route 20. There wasn't part of that decision, but as we go through a master plan and vision on Route 20, we're trying to have all zones not cut through individual people's property, but be inclusive of them, so they have one zone. And as we look at Route 20, we want to develop a corridor that is actually viable for building on Route 20, not having zones split in half by arbitrarily drawn lines.
So would this allow for economic development? Is that the?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anything else to be said?
Safer, 97 Blood Road.
Thank you, Mr. Safer.
So I'm understanding that this is being proposed by the planning board, not by the owner of the property, is that correct?
So this is being proposed by the planning board.
The owner of the property did come in front of the board, and we supported his motion to make this, to amend the zoning map into one property.
So does the owner of the property, they proposed, or do they have plans to develop the property as such?
I am not aware of that at this point.
Thank you. Is there anything else to be said on this matter? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the zoning change, please vote. 1 for yes, 2 for no, please vote now. Please stop voting. (149) in the affirmative, 36 voted no, the motion carries. Motion carries. And Article 18 is zoning bylaw amendment, amend section 200, 6.9 subdivision proposals of the zoning bylaw. To see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw, section 6.9 subdivision proposals by adding, quote, all subdivision proposals and development proposals in the floodplain overlay district shall be reviewed to assure that, end quote. Immediately following the wording of section 200, 6.9 subdivision proposals, or take any action relative thereto or thereon. This is sponsored by the planning board. Do we have a motion? Mr. Smith.
Madam Moderator, I make a motion to move that zoning bylaw section 6.9 subdivision proposals be amended by striking the language district shall be reviewed to assure that immediately following the word chapter 200, section 200, 6.9 subdivision proposal, and replacing the same with all subdivision proposals and development proposals in the floodplain overlay district shall be reviewed to ensure that.
Second. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We have the recommendation of the planning board.
Planning board supports this motion.
Thank you. This requires a 2/3 majority. Is there anything to be said on this matter? Hearing none. Please take your voting device. Please vote 1 for yes, in favor, and 2 if you're opposed. Please vote no. Three seconds remaining. Please stop the voting. We have 173 in favor, 12 opposed. The motion carries.
Shall I now, or are you going to, are you going to?
I'll adjourn the formal meeting first, and then we'll find out who gets the bonus prize.
Right here, I vote aye. Madam Moderator, I motion we adjourn.
And I'm sorry, for the record, would you please state your full name?
Wait a minute, I'll get my license out. Curtis Meskis, 72 H-Foot Road.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor by voice vote? Aye. Anyone opposed, vote no. Okay, the meeting is technically adjourned. I want to thank everyone for staying through the meeting, and as promised, we have a raffle door prize. There's a nice glass trivet in the bottom with owls on it. There's some birds, there's a tote bag, there's a crochet owl. It's a very nice gift. And we did a drawing before, while we were waiting for the meeting to start, so that we know what number. So does anyone have clicker number, and it will be on the back, 27? Shout bingo if you have it. If you don't have clicker number 27, we're gonna do, it's not Price is Right rules. Who's got closest to number 27? 23, anyone closer? 28.